The suspension of disbelief is a strange thing, because it can be as solid as reinforced steel and then just broken by the slightest of breezes. Take Lord of the Rings, for example. I'm totally fine with Dark Lords and magic rings and wizards and elves and orcs. But when Frodo wakes up in Rivendell in Fellowship of the Ring and Gandalf says it is October the 24th, I'm like, you what, mate? You have Octobers. You have a month in Middle-earth derived from the real-world Greek word for 8. You have the Gregorian calendar in Middle-earth, whose name comes from the real-world Pope Gregory the 13th. How? Obviously, this does nothing to detract from the overall perfection of the Lord of the Rings movies, but it does take you out of it, just for a second. Momentarily, the suspension of disbelief breaks. But what if it isn't just an errant line that brings a story's suspension of disbelief into question? What if it's its entire premise? Well, that's just in general a little bit harder to do, because a premise is so all-encompassing that you are more likely to accept it. Using the same Lord of the Rings example, this would be someone having a problem with Dark Lords and magic rings and wizards and elves and orcs. And there are some people who can't accept and enjoy those things. But as I just said, as the whole premise is there from start to finish, it's consistent and only requires a little sort of leap of faith at the beginning. A leap of faith most people don't even notice themselves taking. It's harder to get into the headspace of rejecting it. I think that might have happened to me though, reading this, V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta is a graphic novel released between 1982 and 1985. Written by Alan Moore and illustrated by David Lloyd. Yes, the same guy who owns all those gyms. He is multi-talented, and I'm lying. If you've not read the book, you've almost certainly at least heard of the 2005 V for Vendetta movie adaptation starring Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving. The story follows a revolutionary named V and his attempts to overthrow the fascist British government that arose after a nuclear war, and the policemen trying to stop him. And therein lies the problem. For me, at least. V's revolution. The things he does, the things he achieves. Whoa, look at that. We have entered heaven, apparently. They kind of break my suspension of disbelief in like an irreparable way. Irreparable? Is that right? Irreparable. Why do I keep scripting that word? I found myself quite a few times going, really? If that's not a sign that your suspension of disbelief is being tested, I don't know what is. So that's what we're going to be looking at here. I'm going to be going through the 3 V for Vendetta books and highlighting those instances where I couldn't quite swallow what I was being fed. I'll be doing the inverse too, of course. It would not be fair for me to parade around all the instances that break immersion without showing all the legwork that the story does to minimize that and make things easier to believe. But I think once we're done, it should become clear that that legwork wasn't quite enough. First though, quick thoughts on the book. Despite my aforementioned issues with the premise, I actually quite like this, the first book and the 3. It's about this one. This much. It's atmospheric, it's dark, it's cathartic, it's funny, it's brutal, it's sad, it's kind of harrowing. It's a lot of good things. The illustrations fit perfectly, which, as someone who only really dips their toes a little bit into comics, I think is actually more important than like hyper detail and photorealism. The dialogue is crisp with the sort of odd, quirky Britishism or Cockney rhyming slang thrown in there for flavour. And the message, fascism bad, is something I think we can all get behind. I do like the way it's structured too. V sort of systematically blowing up London landmarks and picking off the people who wronged him one by one has a real methodical, heavy forward momentum. And I'll never not smile when specific places of the city in which I live are name dropped. Though the character Evie does drop the biggest oxymoron I have ever read. South London. It was nice there. Reading it now in 2025 and hearing about how the world tore itself apart and how totalitarianism rose with seeming ease does come across as sort of eerily prophetic, especially with a "Make Britain Great Again" being uttered. But this was written in response to the way the world was in the 80s. So maybe the world has always just been a wretched place run by people too evil, too greedy, too incompetent, or some combination of the above. It's going to be hard to not get political in this video, but I shall try my best. Right, on to this revolution. Okay, let's first highlight some of that legwork that I mentioned. What the story does to make V's insurrection and the accomplishments therein more believable. The government is useless. So much for not getting political. Maybe exactly perfectly reflecting the real British government of the last 40 years. The government of the Britain in V for Vendetta is completely useless. Their departments are named after parts of a head, for goodness sake, like they're the flipping numbskulls. Does that age me horribly? Are they still in the Beano? Is there even still a Beano? They are this bunch of squabbling, corrupt, petty, angry nerds, too caught up in their own bureaucracy, bottom lines, and images to catch a guy literally blowing up world-famous London landmarks. They use fear and violence to control people, but when a single person shows the slightest bit of resistance, it all goes to pot. They can't get out of their own way like a competent government should be able to do to stop one lone terrorist. This makes V accomplishing everything he does and getting away with everything he does easier to believe, though, as we'll discuss in a moment, not enough, I don't think. V is superhuman. Yes, that is a believable thing. While the extent of his superhuman abilities aren't fully elaborated on in this first book, he is definitely superhuman. This guy can kill like 10 guys at once who all have guns and he's just got knives, and jump from a bridge onto a moving train without getting torn to pieces. And I'm saying this is something that adds to the believability rather than detracts from it, because his level of superhumanness doesn't seem too absurd for this world. It's almost got a sort of Stranger Things tinge to it, but maybe not even that far. You know what I mean? Like shady government programs. I mean, if V was bulletproof and could shoot lasers out of his eyes and summon dragons, I would obviously be singing a different tune here. But it's restrained and not all that in your face, so the story gets away with it. And it's this explanation of him being superhuman that makes those examples I said a moment ago and everything else he does a little bit more believable. Though, again, not all the way. Before I get into the main aspect of the story that I find hardest to pass, I'm going to address a smaller one. V is a dork. He speaks in rhyme, he quotes poetry, he is cringe. If he were in the real world trying to inspire a revolution, calling himself the boogeyman, the villain, he would be laughed off the face of the internet. You need to inspire people, not amuse them. And the essential aspect of being cool is looking like it comes easy to you. But V is the tryest hard of all tryhards. Seriously, if some hacker took over like every single Netflix account in the world and popped up on your TV screen one night quoting Faust, you'd be like, alright mate, calm down. That's only a little thing though. The main thing that nags at every single scene V is in, every single grand accomplishment he achieves, is that he is just one guy. Seriously, even if he is superhuman, even if the government he is fighting is completely incompetent, some of the things he does, he should not be able to do on his own. And before anyone says anything, yes, I understand that V is sort of meant to represent like an ideal, a vision for an entire nation rather than just a single person. But he does physically do stuff. He is a physical man. He's not some kind of vengeful spirit. He's not like the embodiment of England's anger. He's mildly superhuman. He's not conceptually supernatural. And then the only other argument is that there are multiple Vs. And while, spoiler for the last book, there do end up being a lot of people who rally to his cause, he is definitely the only one doing all this initial terrorism. He is superhuman, as I keep saying. If there were an army of superhuman people knocking about rather than just one guy, it'd come up. So what are these things he does? Well, within the first few pages, he blows up the Houses of Parliament. I feel like regardless of time period, regardless of universe, this is not something that can be done, especially by one bloke. Obviously, he's got the Guy Fawkes mask on, a chap who tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament and failed, and now V is here wearing his face and succeeding. So you got a little bit of irony there. But there's sort of a double level of irony that cancels that out, because Guy Fawkes failed in 1604. V succeeds here in 1997 when there are police officers and CCTV and audio surveillance in what is essentially a military state. How? Well, I'll tell you how. With homemade, untraceable explosives. Now, V is super smart, so it's not unbelievable that he knows how to make enough explosives to destroy a massive building. My beef is, where is he getting these ingredients? These days you can't buy 3 bottles of nail polish remover at a time because Boots thinks you're making bombs in your garage. How's V getting a hold of this much explosive material, again, in a military state? Later he blows up the Old Bailey, another historic, enormous building in London. How? The same way as the Houses of Parliament, I guess. Except this was after that, and everyone is on high alert, and he still does it. V's base of operations, the Shadow Gallery, is another point of contention for me. It's underground with enough space for like a library and a museum and living quarters and a one-for-one recreation of a prison camp and a giant black room with a grand piano in it. Did he build all this? How on earth did he do that? Well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say, like I think the film did actually, that this is all just inside an abandoned tube station, so he didn't have to dig it out himself. But how did he fill it with all this stuff? There are things in here that are definitely contraband. Did he just walk through the streets with a grand piano on his back and then lug it down a bunch of stairs? Maybe. And then there are a few other things that he does that make me just say, oh, come on now. He dumps an unconscious body outside New Scotland Yard, the HQ for the London Police, one of the most heavily surveyed buildings in the city. He steals a government official's entire doll collection. He manages to infiltrate a prostitution company and get Evie, the character I mentioned earlier, to replace the person they were already going to send to this evil priest. And then he breaks into an even more heavily defended Westminster Abbey to kill that priest. Do you see what I mean about the suspension of disbelief being broken here? I think if this was all toned back, and if the stuff that he did was just a little less grand, or if the world around V was toned up to match the madness, I think I would have less to say, but neither of those things happen, so it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. And you're like, how is he doing any of this? The problem with all of this unbelievable stuff and the repeated breaking of the suspension of disbelief is, if V can do all of this, why doesn't he just win straight away? He can clearly defy the constraints of the universe he's in. So why doesn't he just defy them all the way and jump straight to the end game? Revolution. Why is there any tension if he can just do anything? Why is there any conflict if he can just do anything? His character does answer that somewhat. He wants to make the people he's hunting down, the people ruining the country, suffer and fear for their lives. He wants to slowly bring the government down piece by symbolic piece. But even still, if you think the country's in a rotten state and you are basically omnipotent, the ball's in your court to fix that sharpish. Remember, with great anarchistic symbology comes great capitalist merchandising. Hello. Thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe. Hope some people like the football shirts video I did a couple weeks ago. Videos like that with the fridge might be coming back. I've got a few more ideas for some nonsense to do up there. So look out for those. Next week though should be just the proper book video that I haven't finished reading, but like just read more of it now. Like that's fine, isn't it? I'll see you there.